Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the GABP, the Generally Average Baseball Podcast. I'm Andrew Collinsworth with Carson Canute as we bring you today the first episode of the podcast, and we're going to be covering the Post-College World Series mock draft coming up on Sunday. The first round of the MLB draft begins, and so we've put together a little bit of a mock of ourselves, both doing a 1 through 30 for the first round. Carson, you want to talk a little bit about what it's about?
Yeah, so kind of like AC said here, we just kind of want to go into a little bit of depth of why we have each pick. We're both love baseball. Want to go into it a little bit in depth about what our ideas are for each team, kind of why we see the teams getting picked and who, maybe comparing them to its player. I have some comps listed in there, and just different ways that we kind of see this draft falling out. I always think I think it's the coolest thing, but also kind of the hardest thing about the MLB draft is that there are no trades. So it is kind of cool because we know each team's going to be picking in each spot. It's different than football. It's different from basketball. So it does, on the mock perspective, make it a little bit easier to do because you don't have to account for that. Now, the interesting thing about the baseball side of things that I'll talk a little bit about is the bonus pool money. It's unlike a lot of other sports. Yeah, there's contracts for certain things, but the cool thing about how the front office can do is they can get in there, get crafty with certain picks, and be able to save money and maybe get some guys above the slot average later on in the picks. So, we're just kind of going to get into this, talk about each pick. Like I said, AC said we got draft picks for each of us. We're going to kind of go through it. So, I think I'm going to start us off here. So with my first pick, I have the Cleveland Guardians taking J.J. Weatherholt out of West Virginia. I know before the season this year, he was mocked as kind of the number one overall pick, had some injury issues going into the season, and maybe not performed as good as some of the other guys. But kind of the two reasons that I have Cleveland taking them is a lot of people have said that he's going to sign for under slot. So Cleveland has the highest slot bonus in their slot pool in this year's draft. So if they can sign him for under slot value, they can make up a lot of money and maybe in their comp round get somebody that a lot of people think might go the college route, but might be able to swing him to the MLB. Another thing is, yeah, it's not likely, but he does have the potential to play at shortstop. I know he played there in college. They say it's most likely he ends up at a second base, but there is a little bit of athleticism that Weatherholt possesses that can leave him there at short, which obviously is a position of value for the Guardians. So that's why I have the Guardians, taking J.J. Weatherholt number one.
Yeah, and like you said, with the slot bonus, that allows them to be more aggressive later in the draft with some prep guys later on. Um, and for me, it just feels like he's either going one or he's going much later than that. It doesn't seem like there's much buzz around 2 through 5 for him. So I got him going a little bit later because I had Travis Bazzana going number one. He seems like the most complete hitter in the draft, just from his approach standpoint. Kind of a hit first bat. Um, he won the Cape Cod MVP a couple last summer, I believe. So he's really proved what he can do with the wooden bat. And I just think that although there's not a whole lot of positional value there, he'll probably stay at second base. Um, he's just going to be the most complete and most ready hitter, I think, coming out of college to impact the major leagues at the earliest time.
No, I agree. I think the cool thing about the Guardians is that they're leading their division and they have the first pick, so it's kind of
Yeah.
their timeline can be a little bit faster and getting somebody up there. And also, I know I was listening to some people talk about the Reds, and they were saying that they could potentially try him out in center field or in the outfield, depending. So who knows if they take him one there. They can maybe try something out, but who knows if they want to mess him up because that bat is just so elite.
Yeah.
Um, Kind of number two for me, I have the Reds. AC and I both big Reds fans. I'm taking Jack Caglione, number two. I know there's a lot of boom or bust there, and that's what kind of makes me nervous. But I just think about that power, what it could be at Great American Ballpark. I always think, and one of the things I know a lot of people don't like to do in baseball mock drafts is draft for positional need. But I do think that it's either Caglione or Condon when it comes to positional need for the Reds. And I just see Caglione as a little bit better fit in that instance, and maybe could impact and on a little bit quicker timeline. I know a lot of people are high on Condon. For some reason, I have a little bit of iffiness about him. I know maybe that's his whole life, coming in at Georgia, under recruited, different things like that. But I think that power potential, and be able to kind of move fast, if Caglione's swing and miss stays at a minimum, because obviously that's the biggest concern when it comes to his swing. So I have him going at number 2 to the Reds.
Yeah, I would like to see him in Great American Ballpark with that short porch out and right. I mean, he would probably put up some crazy power numbers there, but like you said, I have Charlie Condon going number 2 to the Reds. Very similar profile to Jack. I just feel like Condon had the better season, obviously. Of course, Jack is trying to balance, pitching and hitting at the same time. And like most scouts have seen, there's not a whole lot of two-way potential there, but he does have an absolute rocket of an arm. So I'm pretty sure most people have him sticking at first base, maybe a corner outfield spot. Could be in right field if he goes to the Reds. Other than that, I would imagine him being at first base in most other places. But yeah, I have Charlie Condon going number 2. I just like what he did this year. I mean, how could you not? Led in a bunch of statistical categories, 70 grade power. He just brings exactly what the Reds need right now. And even though, like you said, they say not to draft from positional weaknesses, but that it just happens to fit that the top 2 guys that are right there are probably the 2 guys where they're thinnest. So
Yeah.
I think they really can't go wrong there. They're going to have their pick of the crop of whoever Cleveland doesn't take. So really, there's nobody that I think is in that top 5, top 6 guys that they could really swing and miss on. So I do like Caglione, but I like Condon just a little bit more for the Reds.
No, and that's the thing. That's exactly who I was juggling between. Obviously, that hit tool, the pure contact tool, was a little bit higher for Condon, but it is something, that can obviously I understand going Condon over Caglione there. For the Rockies at 3, I have them taking Hagen Smith. Um, as I talked to AC about this, and we were kind of talking about Burns going to Colorado, and why they're always attached to pitchers and different things like that. And I was just thinking, it's hard to get a high level free agent, pitching free agent to get there, to play in Coors Field with that elevation. So if you can get a lefty, they have a love for a little bit funky lefties. They did draft Trace Dolander in the first round last year. They got the other lefty from Wake Forest, funky lefty last year as well. So if Hagen can come in, I feel like he's got the stuff. He's got, had a great season this year. Has had great seasons at Arkansas, and I do really think that he can come in and make an impact on the mound for them. And if you partner him with Chase Dolander, it can be a lethal left and right combo, for them at the top of the rotation, there in core. So I am taking Hagen Smith.
Yeah, I love Hagen Smith. I think he's got probably the best 2 pitch mix in the draft. I mean, how can you not love him? He had a game this year where he struck out the first 15 batters, I think.
Yeah, something like that.
But Chase Burns just brings some of that electric competitive edge that I feel like we haven't seen any Rockies pitcher ever have. And I feel like they can kind of, and it's weird to say build around a pitcher. A lot of times you're building around a shortstop, a center fielder, or a catcher, something like that. But with somebody who has that much high intensity, not to say that Hagen Smith doesn't, but just saying, I think Chase Burns is probably going to be the pick there. Although I do see your point there. I have Burns 1A and Smith 1B. So
Yeah.
it's really a toss up there, but I definitely agree that they're going to go a college pitcher for sure.
And that's the thing. I went back and forth. I mean, it's hard to turn down Burns when he's on and he's throwing 102, 101 with a nasty breaker. And obviously Hagen Smith, the numbers he put up. I know he didn't have a great start in the regional, of the College World Series, but I still believe it's 1A, 1B, for Colorado, and I believe they will have the pick, whatever one they kind of think is better. For number 4, I have Oakland taking Travis Bazzana, and I just feel like he's the best available at that point. As AC already said, with his hitting ability, it's kind of a hard thing to turn down. And Oakland, the thing that I kind of juggle with Oakland, I could see them going a high school prep prep player there just because their timeline is so long. Like I don't see them being a top team in the coming years where I feel like Bazana could be an impact right away. But I did go with Bazana just with him being the best available at that time. They have so many needs, and he could be a future star player when they might move down the line. So it's somebody you could probably build your roster around. And like I said, if you can get a bat where he projects, I could see him being a great fit then in Oakland, and then when they move and maybe be the cornerstone to their franchise after that.
Yeah, and I completely agree. Like, I think Oakland would definitely be in a position to take a prep guy versus a college guy. But there's just not a whole lot of top end prep talent in this draft. Like the top 10, I would say top 7 is pretty much solidified. Is going to be college guys. I don't see many guys, high school guys, creeping in there. So, like you said, you have Travis Bazana going there. I actually have Nick Kurtz going there. He started to fall a little bit early in the year. He might have been like a 1-1, 1-2 guy. I think now MLB has him at 7th, I think. But I have him going number 4 to Oakland for a lot of the reasons that you have Travis going to Oakland as well, because I feel like they just need to build something around somebody. And I think Nick Kurtz can be that guy. And as they explore moving possibly or certainly to Las Vegas, they really need somebody to kind of take that brand over. Like when the Expos moved to Washington, and the face of the franchise for a while in Washington was Ryan Zimmerman, and then it was Bryce Harper. So they're going to get that guy with whoever they take here. But it's important that they make sure that it's the guy that they want and somebody that they want to build the future around.
Yeah, I feel like with Bazana, obviously you didn't have Bazana fall in there, but just kind of with his moxie a little bit, that swagger that he plays with could definitely play in Las Vegas down the line. So, but yeah, that Kurtz, he's just going to be a solid bat. That could definitely help them for sure. Um, with the White Sox at 5, I'm taking Charlie Condon. Pretty similar reason of why I have Oakland taking Bazana, best available at that time. Very similar in the same sense that maybe a prep, the two prep players that position players that could maybe sneak their way up there is a Connor Griffin or Bryce Rayner. But and with the Chicago White Sox, once again, their timeline is in play to get a prep player. But if Charlie Condon's still on the board there at 5, I don't see how they turn that down. That's kind of where I have him slipping as far as I could see him slipping in the draft. And I feel like if they could get a surefire player, maybe if they trade Luis Robert at the deadline, find another future outfielder that can kind of be that staple for them moving forward. And kind of also if they get some prospects that are in the higher level of the minor leagues, Condon might be able to slip right in there with them and be on that fast track to the major leagues.
Yeah, and I'm kind of we flip flop picks here. So you had Cincinnati taking Caglione and Chicago taking Condon, and I have Cincinnati taking Condon and Chicago taking Caglione. Like we've mentioned a little bit before, they're similar players in the term of production wise. I think Jack tends to chase just a little bit more than Condon does, although both of them have their fair share of whiff rates. Um, so that's the only reason that I have him slipping, as much as you would say the number 5 pick would be slipping, as somebody who's touted as a top 5 talent for sure. So that's why I have Jack going here. I think Chicago's a really good fit for him. They just need to start from scratch, honestly. What they have going on there is not a good culture by any means. Every night I'm watching a low light on on Twitter about or on X about something that happens. And I will say this though, I did get the chance to go to guaranteed rate. I think it's guaranteed right now.
Yeah.
Field this summer, and everybody told me it was going to be worse than it actually was. I actually thought it was pretty nice. I think it's a little bit underrated.
Yeah, I've been to Wrigley, but I decided not to go to Guaranteed Rate Field there. Might have to make a trip over there sometime. So, um, next at Kansas City, I have them taking Chase Burns with the 6th pick. Kind of like we talked about with the Smith Burns earlier. I just think Burns is also an elite pitcher, and if you can get an elite arm at 6, where his ceiling is an ace of a staff. So I feel like if you can get that, they already have. I think their player for the future in Bobby Witt. So I feel like if you could partner them and get a good pitcher to be your frontline starter in the future, that would be the route I would go there. And they're also in the second in the AL Central right now. Them and the Twins kind of battling it out there. So I could see him being an impact arm and maybe in the future. And at the end of worst, he becomes what Garrett Crochet did in my mind, where he gets called up super fast as a reliever and can build into that starter role. But I see that as worst case scenario. I don't see Kansas City fast tracking him like the White Sox did with Crochet a few years back. But that's kind of a little comp that I can see there and within stuff that Burns possesses there.
Yeah, this is where I got Braden Montgomery going from Texas A&M, the switch hitting outfielder. He had a great year, and he's improved every single year that he's been um, in Texas. I think that he's done a really good job of continuing to improve on his approach and his discipline at the plate. Um, I'm not sure where he's going to play. He's probably going to be a corner guy. He's got a great arm. I'm not totally sure about the about everything else fielding wise, but I think Kansas City will get really good value out of this pick. I think he probably rose after the College World Series in the draft and on draft boards. He's still 21, so he's got plenty of time to grow. Plus power to all parts of the field. He just seems like he's got things figured out, and as he's continued to progress, that makes me think that while he goes through the minor league trek, that he'll also continue to progress there and just really refine his approach overall.
Yeah. No, I like that for sure. And I have the Cardinals taking Braden Montgomery with the seventh pick. And kind of the reason, I have a couple of reasons for that. In the past, they have when Montgomery, before he transferred Texas A&M, was at Stanford, did get on the mound a little bit, and they've had a couple guys like Mason Wynn came in with some pitching background. So they've kind of had guys that have had a little bit of pitching. I know Montgomery didn't throw it all for Texas A&M this year, but I could see that. And I also know they drafted an advanced hitter and Chase Davis recently in the draft from Arizona, and they kind of give me similar projections. I think Montgomery's a little bit better, but they've kind of liked that corner outfield spot, college bat. That kind of seems to be able to fast track a little bit. So I feel like that's kind of why Montgomery fits in there at 7 and why St. Louis would fall in love with that pick if he falls down there. And I know he hurt his leg in the College World Series, but they say that's not going to be an issue, and I don't foresee that being a way that he falls in the draft. So I think if he's there at 7, St. Louis Cardinals will snag him up there.
Yeah, and this is where I have JJ Weatherholt going here to St. Louis. Just feels like this might be the bottom of the range for him. I don't think he'll fall much past St. Louis. He definitely won't fall past Los Angeles there at number 8. And he has the talent to go number 1. Obviously, there's those injury concerns that he's dealt with throughout his college career, and especially this past season. But he is a complete player. I mean, he does everything pretty well. I think that there's probably more power to come. I think he probably slots in at second base rather than shortstop. I don't know if he has the arm to play short. So maybe as a second baseman, but I know that they'll probably bring him up through the minor leagues as a shortstop just to get his feet wet and keep trying to add on to that arm a little bit. So I'm excited to see what he ends up doing. I think that St. Louis would be in love with him if they get him at number 7. It just feels to me that 2 through 5 is like there's like a set number of guys right there, or 2 through 6 rather, that are just like, these are the guys that are going to go this early.
No, I agree. And I think, like you said, I think they'd fall in love with Weatherholt there at 7 as well. If he falls there. And like you said, the injury concerns is something, but if he can stay healthy, that'd be a great get for the Cardinals there. For the Angels at 8, I haven't taken Trey Savage out of Eastern Carolina. Couple reasons for that is I think he's a fast track righty, fast track college arm that they've proven to love. I should just say college player. I mean, you got Nolan Shanuel, Zach Neto, Sam Bachman, different players like that, where I think Trey Savage just fits that exact mold of somebody that they can put in. He's got advanced stuff, multiple pitches. that I think the Angels would fall in love with. And it seems like something that if they can get him there, I wouldn't be shocked within a year if he's up in the big leagues and is ready to pitch for them. So I just think he fits that mold of the Angels pick in the past. So
Yeah, and I like the Angels going with a college pitcher here. I have them taking Hagen Smith, who you had going number 3, and like you mentioned earlier, Hagen Smith, he does it all. I mean, he's incredible. It helps that he's from the left-handed side there. So while I do see Savage going pretty early, I could see him going early, like all the way up to number 8 there to Los Angeles. I just feel as though his command needs to improve before he can really say that he's going to be like a dominant ace. I feel like he has a high floor. He's probably going to end up being like a 3 or 4. And if he improves that command, then he can end up being an ace for a staff like Los Angeles, who has really struggled to have an ace in a long time. So I mean, aside from Shohei, um,
yeah,
I mean it's hard. He's in his own world, so I don't
yeah.
even count him. But I just feel like they need to they do have to take a college arm here, and I have Hagen Smith going here, and I think he's the second best pitcher in the draft.
No, I agree. I think this is my ceiling for where your Savage goes there at 8. And if Hagen Smith, if I didn't have him being taken earlier, I would 100% have it Burns and Smith going 1 and 2. But that's where I have your Savage going. So here at number 9, and it's crazy to say, um, but I have Connor Griffin as a first prep player taken. Um, there at number 9 to Pittsburgh. Part of me wanted to put him at 8 to the Angels because I see like if his stars align, I feel like he could be the next 5 tool player there in Los Angeles. Obviously, it's not a given, but I could see it. So I wanted to put him there, but just with the recent track record, like I said, with the Angels, I had him slipping to 9. And for my opinion, I don't think Pittsburgh could turn down Connor Griffin here. Part of me wanted to give him Nick Kurtz, who I have going 10. I feel like they could use a fast track first baseman. They've played kind of overperformed, in my opinion, this year. But I think that Connor Griffin just gives them another good prospect, and B, the potential to be a superstar. Like I said, he's got all 5 tools. It's just is it going to play at the pro level? And I think time will tell. He also gives you positional versatility. He's played some shortstop. He's played some outfield. With his speed, he can really play anywhere. So I think that's a home run hit there in Connor Griffin. It's kind of a boom or bust, but I have him going at 9 to Pittsburgh.
Yeah, I think Connor Griffin is going to be extremely good. I think he has the highest ceiling out of any of the prep players in this draft. He could stick at shortstop, like you said. He would be a plus defender there. I think he'd be a plus defender in center field as well. It's that speed and his arm. That's a great combination there. But the only reason I don't have him going any earlier is because of the ongoing contact problems that scouts are seeing. And again, I haven't watched a ton of his film or anything. So this is just basically what I'm hearing is that he's had a little bit of swing and miss issues and contact problems, but that's all something that could get ironed out. For that, I have him falling a little bit, and right here I have uh, I believe James Tibbs, yeah, Tibbs from Florida State, who is kind of a contact first bat, I guess I would say, but the power is definitely there as well. Tibbs seems like he has a high floor. And for the Pittsburgh Pirates, it seems like they kind of want to get some guys accelerated to the major league level because you can kind of tell they're on the verge of competing now. And maybe not, I'm not saying not to take the best player available, but you might have to go down a different avenue if you're trying to get guys up to the bigs a little bit sooner, knowing that your window is coming up, I would say, in the next 3 to 5 years with O'Neill Cruz, Nick Gonzalez, Paul Skeens, Jared Jones. I mean, they have a good young core there. I think Tibbs could add to that core and be up within a couple of seasons.
No, I agree. I like Tibbs a lot. And I have him going a little bit later. But I'll give you a little comp for that. So wait for the comp, but I have a little comp for him that I think could fit. Um, Next pick with the 10th pick, I have the Washington Nationals taking Nick Kurtz. Um, I think he's a fast track first baseman. Kind of the reason why you had him at 4 is just because he can make that impact with the bat. And I think the Nationals, um, they kind of can change their pace a little bit. After that Juan Soto trade, it kind of looked like it was going to be a while for them to compete. And I still think they're off a little bit. But James Wood coming up, C.J. Abrams has had a breakout year. Mackenzie Gore's been really good. And I could see Nick Kurtz slotting into that lineup, maybe batting in the 2 hole, in the 5 hole, something along there and at his peak as a 3 hole. But I feel like he's a fast track first baseman that can get up there with those guys pretty quick and make an impact in Washington.
I feel the same way about the franchise and their positioning. I just have Christian Moore going here from Tennessee. I think he jumped up a little bit on boards after the College World Series, and I also think that he is a pretty complete hitter. He's built pretty well, 6'1", 210, and he's going to do damage. He doesn't go up there looking to flip a ball into right field for a base hit. He's going up there looking to drive balls into the gap. And although he plays second base, I still think that he could probably move around a little bit. Just knowing his track record, I believe that he played a couple of different places at Tennessee over his time. So there's not a ton of positional value there, but I just feel like they're definitely going to be taking a college hitter, and I could see Christian Moore fitting in well with that organization.
I agree. I agree. And the cool thing about the next pick, AC, it's our first pick that we have the exact same.
I know.
So kind of funny there. We both have Detroit taking Bryce Rayner. We can kind of go into a little bit there. Obviously, it's your first prep guy taking off at 11. Kind of just the main reason that I have. I feel like he fits in with the Max Clark, Kevin McGonigal picks of last year. I feel like the Tigers, yeah, some of their prospects are coming up. Riley Green's been having some success, so that kind of proves I feel like they've had success with prep players. You know, um, so I feel like that's kind of where I could see them going with this pick. Also, that shortstop is a key value position there, and if everything pans out for Rayner, he could be an everyday shortstop there for Detroit, which I feel like is something that they would look for and would love to take there with the 11th pick.
Yeah, I completely agree. I still think Griffin is probably the top prep player in the class, but I do have Rayner going above him just because of what you said. Like he fits that Max Clark McGonigal vibe that they were going with last year. I think that he's going to be a shortstop. I don't think he's going to move around much, which is awesome for Detroit. It seems like they haven't had a shortstop in a very long time that's been at least competent up there, or at least an
What was
average
it?
everyday player.
Jose Iglesias probably back in way back
Even
when, or
then, that's
yeah.
I mean, Johnny Peralta, like something like that. Like it's been a
Yeah.
while for them to have an everyday starter at shortstop who's gonna like put up consistent, 750 plus OPS seasons. And I'm not claiming that Rayner's gonna be that, but I will say that I think he's one of the more advanced bats out of high school. And he's also getting knocked a little bit because of his age. He's 19, so he's just a little bit older than some of the other high schoolers. Otherwise, I think he might be going a little bit earlier, but I love him for the Detroit Tigers. I think he's a great fit.
Yeah, I think the interesting thing too about those top two prep guys is they were great pitchers as well in high school. So it's always the interesting thing is to see them focus on one position, which is always interesting because there's been a lot of guys that I feel like once they get focused on one or the other, you kind of see that excel and then kind of make a jump. So that'll be kind of be interesting to see with Rayner and Griffin there. So at number 12 in Boston. I'm taking Tibbs, who AC had at the ninth pick. And kind of like I said, my comp for James Tibbs, and you can tell me if you think I'm off on this a little bit, but I have a little bit more power potential Andrew Benintendi. And I feel like Andrew Benintendi, obviously Golden Spikes a winner in college and got up pretty quick, helped them, and was a huge contributor for in that outfield. He's fallen off a little bit this year, but I feel like that Tibbs, that high contact, can fit in a corner outfield spot, make plays, Might not be the top of the lineup type of guy, but fits in and what rounds out the lineup and the type of player that you need to win games. And that's what Andrew Benintendi, I felt like, was in Boston. And I feel like James Tibbs can have that exact same effect in the future in Boston. And they had success last year taking Kyle Teal. Kyle Teal kind of slipped to them. I believe they had the 14th pick last year. So this James Tibbs, not that it's a crazy slip, because that's kind of, I think, where his average spot is, but I think they would love to take Tibbs there with the 12th pick.
Yeah, I like that comp. I was kind of thinking the same thing, but I wasn't going to say it knowing that Benintendi has really, really struggled this year. But in
Yeah.
his prime and in his Boston days, that's kind of what I was thinking as well. Here's where I have Griffin going. Um, I think, like we've talked about him already, I think he's going to be a stud, and I think he has the highest ceiling out of any prep player. I think Boston has longed for a star for since Mookie left, and I think that he could become a bona fide star. I know they have Rafi Devers over there, and his stick is great, but when you think about somebody who's like the face of a franchise MVP candidate, I wouldn't necessarily throw Devers in that category, just because he's really a bat more than anything. But I like Griffin's potential to be a defender as well at short and potentially in the outfield. And again, like I think that he is probably going to have the highest ceiling out of any prep player in this class.
No, I agree. I agree. Um, 13th pick there at San Fran. We both have Cam and Nettie going there at 13. And obviously, the highest prep pitcher that we have. He was a reclass, so he is young. He's 17 years old on draft day, which is huge. And I think the thing is too, I know last year, same thing. They took Bryce Eldridge, and he now is playing the field basically primarily. I know Cam Eddie's had a little bit of hit tool as well, and I know they're not foreseeing him being a hitter at all in the pros, but it kind of reminds me of something like that, where let's focus him on pitching. He's young, he's a prep guy, he's got a good body, he's athletic. And let's see where that takes us. So I feel like that's a Bryce Eldridge type fit there with Cam and Eddie, the 17-year-old left-handed pitcher.
Yeah, I think he's got um, all the tools. You know, mid 90s fastball. He has 4+ pitches that he commands pretty well. Um, and he turns 18 in August. So what more could you be asking for out of a left-handed prospect, pitching wise, coming from the high school level than that? Um, yeah, like him a lot. I think he's perfect for San Fran at 13.
I agree. I keep on saying I agree with your picks. I feel like I just say I agree afterwards. But um, for 14, I have Chicago Cubs taking Cam Smith, the third baseman out of Florida State. Um, and I know I struggle with this a little bit. This pick, I know the Cubs sometimes get crafty with it. Usually, the past couple years, I felt like they've kind of had a good draft. And I feel like they take Cam Smith. He's 19 years old and has played college baseball, so it's hard to knock on that. He kind of reminds me just because it's a similar position, similar skill at the college level, but they did take Matt Shaw last year, so I feel like it's kind of a similar type pick for that. And I feel like Cam Smith is an athlete, so I think he's a really good third baseman. But I feel like if you needed to move him to a corner spot, or something along those lines. He does have the athletic ability to fit in. And then obviously the bat plays. So I feel like there at 14, the Cubs would take Cam Smith.
Yeah, I like Cam Smith. I don't have him going that high. I mean, obviously the improvements from his freshman year have been fantastic. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that he was projected to go, in the first couple rounds a couple years ago as a high schooler. He falls out of those rounds, and then no one decides to even take a shot at him,
Yeah.
which is pretty surprising. But he's got a lot more power in the tank to come. But I actually have the Cubs taking Savage here. Again, like we've talked about before, he's got pretty much all the tools to be a starting pitcher in the major leagues. Just needs to work on his command a little bit. I like his splitter a lot. I think he goes split and slider. And as he just continues to work on his craft and getting over the plate more and dominating the strike zone, I think that he's just going to continue to rise.
Yeah. No, I could definitely see that being a Cubs pick, right there with you, Savage, if he gets there to 14. Next at 15, we got Seattle. Both of us haven't taken Seaver King out of Wake Forest. It's funny for the position here. I put utility because he really can play everywhere.
Yeah.
He's an athlete. I love the story coming from a D2 program, having crazy success there, transferring to Wake Forest, having a good season there this year. And I feel like he's just the type of dude that's going to be in the major leagues and is going to make an impact. I'm not sure to what extent, but he's the type of dude that you'd love to have on your team because it's like, oh, hey, we need a third baseman today. Let's put him there. Oh, we need a center fielder today. Let's put him there. Oh, we need a shortstop. Let's put him there. And that's just something I don't feel like Seattle can turn down. I know last year in Seattle's draft, they took 3 high schoolers with their comp picks and first round picks. But I feel like that's the main thing about those high schoolers where they are athletes, and I feel like that's kind of what you get here. Receiver King is an athlete that the more higher competition that he plays, I feel like he's just going to get better and better and end up in Seattle in some time. So I've been taking Seaver King there at 15.
Yeah, as do I. And it's funny you say utility. I have him listed. I just put down infield slash outfield. So same
Yeah,
exact thing. And I hate the only reason I didn't write utility down is because people tend to use utility as a knock on guys. And
yeah,
here, I don't think it's a knock whatsoever. I think he plays every position very well. And some of the best players in the game today are what we would consider utility players. I think Mookie has played 5 positions at the major league level, maybe 6.
yeah.
So some of the best guys are just good enough to play everywhere, and I think he's like that. I think his bat to ball skills are pretty good, good speed. Yeah, but that position versatility is honestly massive, and it allows Seattle to do whatever they want with him. And I can see him getting in work in 6 different positions in the minor leagues before he ever makes his debut.
Yeah, no, I agree there. Kind of agree on that pick. Next, with the 16th pick, I have Miami taking William Schmidt, right-hander from Louisiana. Uh, I'll be honest, I don't know a crazy amount. Probably one of the players I know the least amount within this first round, just because it's harder to get all the information about the prep guys. But I'm seeing here he's got a 70 grade curveball, can spin it up to 300 RP or 3,000 RPMs, which is obviously impressive. Has that mid 90s fastball. And I think one of the most impressive things from him is that his high school won the state and national championship this year. So he's coming from a winning program. I think they produced both of the Nola brothers. So Austin and Aaron Nola came from that high school. So it's proven to produce winners and good baseball players, which is always nice. And I think Miami there, I know they took 2 prep high schoolers with their first 2 picks last year in Noble Meyer and Thomas White. And I feel like this William Schmidt can fit right in there. I feel like he can be that third guy to those 2 prep arms that they took last year and kind of keep on building that arms that they have in the Marlins system there, because that's obviously they need players there in Miami, and I feel like if they can build that staff, they'll be set up for success. So that's why I have them taking William Schmidt.
Yeah, Schmidt has probably the best curveball in the draft out of any college or prep guy, and that's kind of his calling card a little bit. He's really good with that, and he plays his fastball off of it. Um, I think he's going to be a good pitcher. But here I have Cam Smith staying in Florida, going from Florida State to Miami, and we talked a little bit about Cam Smith already. Um, Not sure where he's going to be playing, but I like the ceiling that he has. I think he's got a lot more power in the tank than what he showed, and I think that he's the type of player that Miami kind of likes to have. So I see him being a good fit there for the Marlins.
Cool, cool. And it would be cool to see Cam Smith just stay in Florida and maybe become an impact guy down there in Miami.
Yeah.
17 here, Milwaukee. I'm starting Carson Binge. Is it? I'm struggling. Is it Benji? I'm not 100% sure. It's kind of my bad on that one. But outfielder from Oklahoma State. Um, I think the lefty bat has good bat to ball skills, high exit velos. He actually used to be a pitcher as well. So it's one of those guys that has excelled at both hitting and pitching, which I always think is really cool because it's tough to do. And what happens after they do focus on one thing? Where can we see that go, and where does that potential go for him there in Milwaukee? And I was reading these semifinalists for the John Olerud Award, best two-way player, a few years ago. So that's just something. He's an athlete. He can play the outfield spots, and it's probably going to be a solid bat. And he just, for me, kind of fits that Milwaukee mold of a college bat that's just going to be steady. He might not be an all-star, but he's going to be a dude that's going to win them games in Milwaukee, and that's why I think they will take him there.
Yeah, that's why I have him going 18 to Tampa Bay and why I have Schmidt going 17 to Milwaukee. So we're just a couple picks off right there with those guys. Like we touched on already, Schmidt, absolute hammer of a curveball, good pitcher, and Bench being like an everyday starter, it seems to be penciled in. He's probably one of the higher floor guys. Gonna be a major leaguer. I'm pretty confident in that. It's just gonna be what kind of production you're getting. Is he gonna be, a rotational outfielder? Is he going to be starting every day? I don't think that he necessarily possesses all the tools to become an MVP type of level player. But I do think he's going to be a very solid major leaguer for a while. And I think he's going to have a long career in the bigs.
You talk about your next pick. You jumped the gun on 19 there.
No, I talked about Schmidt. I talked about Schmidt and Bench.
Yeah, so you just did your 18 and 19, right? He had the Mets.
No, I had 17 and
Oh,
18.
oh yeah, so you did 17 and 18. So you had Tampa Bay. Yeah. No, I'm getting all messed up here. That's all me. But Tampa Bay here, 18. I'm taking Christian Moore, and I hated having fall this far just after the year he had. Honestly, I think he got snubbed the SEC Player of the Year. It's hard to say that with Condon and Caglione in that conference, but the numbers that he put up was crazy. And then to lead Tennessee to the championship this year is just another mark for Christian Moore in his career at Tennessee. But for some reason, I just feel like this is Tampa Bay will get lucky and they'll just have Christian Moore fall in their lap, and it's just another way to reload their players there in Tampa Bay. We'll see how he pans out. Obviously, that bat was amazing in college, but like you said earlier about him, the positional value isn't crazy, so that's why I can see him maybe slipping a little bit. But I think it would be an absolute steal. And like I said, I hated having fallen this far, but I just saw a little bit more value for those teams ahead of him, and kind of seeing Christian Moore fit in perfectly there in Tampa Bay. Yeah, so you already covered your Tampa Bay pick there. Um, and now I'm looking, the next player I have going 19 to the Mets. I don't even think you have him going in your first round, but I have Vance Honeycutt going to the New York Mets there at 19. And for me, he's another guy. He's got a lot of swing and miss. But the power and speed combo that Vance Honeycutt possesses is second to none. He also can play a great defensive center field. I feel like at his best, he can be what a New York style market wants to see, holding down the middle of their center field spot, and hitting, at his best, 30 home runs and stealing 30 bags, being a 30-30 player with great defense. Obviously, there's a big if, and that's that contact skills. But I feel like Mets would be willing to kind of take a swing there at 19 and say, hey, if he can pan out, he can be a great player. I remember after his freshman year, sophomore year, they're talking about him being the surefire number one pick. And then obviously some of the things change, but I feel like Vance Honeycutt there is kind of where I have him going. And obviously he could slip kind of like you have in your mock, but yeah, that's who I have going 19 to the Mets.
Yeah, I think this is the first time where I really disagree, just because I think we kept waiting for Honeycutt to just finally get a better approach at the plate and a better discipline and eye, and it just didn't happen over his 3 years. Um, which I don't know if it's going to get any better in the minor leagues, and I'm sure that it will. I don't think that he's going to be a bad player by any means. Like you said, he has two, probably three outstanding tools, like two of the best tools in the draft, and then he can play a great defensive center field. But I'm just questionable about the stick, whether it's going to play in pro ball or not. And for that reason, I have Theo Gillen going here to the Mets. The prep second baseman, shortstop. He's probably going to be a second baseman, I think. He's one of the better high school bats in this draft, and he's a legit stolen base threat. And I think that he's kind of similar to Jet Williams in that way that they took last year. But I wouldn't mind seeing them double down here because this guy has a lot of potential. I think he's got a pretty high ceiling. It's just whether or not the bat is going to continue to play up at that level as it is with a lot of those prep guys because you just don't know until they get there.
Yeah, for sure. And that's the thing about Honeycutt, that is a huge, huge if about that bat. But if he could somehow figure that out, I think you could have a great player in your hands. And that's why there probably is he's such a polarizing player for that, just because you
Yeah.
don't know what you're going to get. And when it happens, it's great to watch. But when it doesn't, there can definitely be struggles there. And then with the 20th pick, Toronto, I haven't taken Theo Gillen as well. Kind of like all the reasons why you mentioned. His bat is one of the best in the prep. He's got the run tool with it, which is a tough combo to turn down. And then obviously, his arm, I don't, is probably his worst tool, and that's probably why they see him more as a second baseman. I think the glove could play at short, but I don't know if the arm will be good enough to stick there at shortstop. I know last year the Toronto Blue Jays went with Arjun Namala. Last time I looked, he wasn't having the best success so far, so it'll be interesting if they want to try and get a prep and keep on going that prep route. But I think Theo Gillen is more proven than Arjun was last year, and I think he could have that hit tool and really be able to be a good player for the Toronto Blue Jays down the line.
Yeah, here I have Brody Brett getting taken. I know you don't have him in your mock either for the first round, but I think he's up there with Hagen Smith and Chase Burns for having the best stuff in the class. I mean, his stuff is undeniable, triple digits fastball, and he just has wipeout breaking stuff. The big question is going to be whether or not he's going to stick as a starter with his struggles with command and a lack of a third pitch. He's thrown, I think it was a change up a little bit, maybe a splitter, not enough. And he's had those command problems, but I think you have an opportunity here to take a chance at possibly getting at the very best a top of the line starter, going to be an ace. And at the worst, I could see him being a closer type coming out of the bullpen late in games. And with that, 100-mile-an-hour fastball, he wouldn't need to add a third pitch with already his slider or breaking ball, which is already very good as is.
Yeah, I went back and forth on that Brecht pick, kind of for all the reasons that he said. I almost slotted him at 23 to the Dodgers because I know they like their stuff pitchers. Um, but just for those reasons, but it's hard to not fall in love with his stuff. But yeah, he kind of just sneaked out. I probably see him as a comp pick there right after the first round, but definitely a really good arm. 21 Minnesota once again with me and AC at the same pick. We have team Caleb Lamavetta out of Cal, the catcher. For him, I think it's just the athleticism. He's got a good arm. He's got power potential there behind the plate. I know he's played in the Cape for 2 summers, seen some success there, which always helps. And I just, for some reason, I just had him go in there. He just kind of felt like that type of fit. I don't know. Do you have anything more to add on Caleb, or any reason that you thought Minnesota might be the team for him?
Um, well, it's been a while since they've taken a catcher in the first round. You know who that guy was?
Was that Joe Mauer last time?
Yeah, Hall of
Yeah.
Fame Joe Mauer. So track record's pretty good taking catchers there. I don't know. I like him. I thought, before the season he might have been going a little bit higher. I'd like to see him stick at catcher. I don't think that he would really have to move anywhere. I think maybe he had a couple games at third base with Cal early on. But he just needs to work on his approach. He hardly walked last year. I think he had 14 walks and he played pretty much the whole season. So um, if he can get his walk rate a little bit higher, I think the bat's going to continue to play, and defensively, he's going to be a big league catcher. So I have no real concerns with him. But I also don't know if he's going to be the type of guy that is going to, anchor the franchise.
I agree. I agree. Could maybe fall into that rotational catcher, maybe this main starter, catch 5 games out of 7, something like that.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
I could see that kind of being the fit there, and it's hard to turn that down because obviously catcher is such an important position
Yeah. I
there.
mean, it's a premium position. So you have to, if you have a guy that you like, then you should go get him. You never
Yeah,
know. Year by year, it just seems like the catchers in the second, third, fourth rounds don't end up being quite nearly as good as the guys who go in the first.
I agree. I agree. Once again, 22nd pick. I mean, AC, same selection. We haven't taken Ryan Waldschmidt, outfielder from Kentucky. I just loved watching Kentucky play baseball this year, so I fell in love with watching Waldschmidt play. He's just a guy with an advanced approach at the college level,
Yeah.
and I feel like that's something that sticks out for him. And obviously, Baltimore's time is kind of now, and obviously they have young guys, so I shouldn't say now, but they're one of the top teams in the MLB right now. And obviously, it's a logjam sometimes with the prospects that they have. They're in Baltimore, but I feel like he's just a guy that will plug his way through the minor leagues. Will be kind of a quick riser and can be a guy that can be a rotational outfielder for them, just because it is so crowded there in Baltimore. And then who knows? I know Cedric Mullins hasn't had the best year, so there might be an open spot in the outfield coming up. And obviously, they have Kowser, Kerstad, and them and Hayes out there in the outfield. But I feel like he's just a guy that could be a fourth outfielder, and you're going to get a solid average, good contact, advanced approach guy out of Waldschmidt.
Yeah, he feels pro ready. I like everything about his game. He feels like an Oriole in a way. It just for whatever reason, it just seems like the pick. I was looking to see if they would get a prep guy here. I liked Sloan as well, but I ended up going with Waldschmidt just because I think they want to keep building that position player pipeline to the major leagues, and they've had a lot of success getting those college guys. So I am completely fine with this pick for them. I think it's a good pick. I think it's a safe pick as well.
Yeah, I agree, and I'll tell you who in a little bit who I wish they would take, but we'll kind of see how that goes. And don't get me wrong, love Ryan Waldschmidt, but I feel like this player coming up is probably my favorite player in the draft, and I'll kind of talk to you a little bit about that. Maybe not favorite player as in best player potential, but why I just kind of love him. Next, I have the Dodgers taking Ryan Sloan, right-handed pitcher out of York, Illinois. Kind of like you mentioned before, who you thought potentially might go prep for Baltimore. But I just know the Dodgers, know them. They develop arms really well. They like to stack the arms that they have in their system. Advanced pitcher. 60 fastball, 60 changeup. When you can get those two pitches going together, especially at a young age, I feel like some of those off speeds can be easier to build off of. So if you have that 1-2 combo of the fastball changeup, it can set you up for success, especially for a prep guy early on in their pro career. And there's the nice thing I think about this pick is there's going to be no pressure on Sloan to get to the big leagues fast. The Dodgers obviously have the pitchers. Where I feel like he can take some development time, you know, give him a few years, progress a third pitch. I know he already throws a slider, but even get that better and potentially even get a fourth pitch while they're in the minors and just make sure he's pro ready by the time he's up there and there's not pressure for him to be up there in the coming years. It can be maybe a 4 to 5+ year process, and he's still going to be young and be able to make it for the bigs and the Dodgers. So,
Yeah, I think Sloan is a perfect fit for the Dodgers. I just see them taking Slade Caldwell, another prep bat instead. But I like Sloan. I mean, who's not to like in this draft? It's easy to
yeah.
say you like somebody because they're all absolute studs. But I feel like he would fit in well there just because they tend to really do a good job of building pitchers, and he's kind of somebody that they can, mold the clay of. And so I could see him going there, but like I said, I have Slade Caldwell going there instead. Slade Caldwell reminds me a lot of TJ Friedel or like Pete Crow Armstrong. His run is his best tool, and his second best tool is his field. So He's undersized. I think he's 5'9". He can hit. Um, he's going to be a center fielder. There's questions about his arm strength, but that's something that you can work on, especially in the outfield. It's not absolutely vital to have in center field. Obviously, you want your center fielder to have a great arm, but there's plenty of guys like TJ Friedel who doesn't have a good arm who sticks out there. His bat is okay. I don't think he has a ton of pop there, but his bat to ball skills are pretty good. 55 grade contact, which is decent enough. So I'm hesitant to have somebody take somebody who's a field and run first prospect, but I think the bat will continue to play. It's just whether or not he's going to tap into that power. He's only 5'9", like I said, so he's probably going to never break above that 12 home run mark, 10, 12 home run mark, but that's okay. That's what you're picking here because you're picking somebody who is going to be very good in every other facet of the game.
Yeah, and I think it goes the same thing that I said about Sloan there, is there's not going to be a crazy rush for him to where they can actually fully develop that hit tool and be able to
Yeah.
put time for him to develop, which is always nice for those prep guys. So this pick, the 24th pick, the Atlanta Braves taking my favorite player in the draft, Durangelo Sinjay. I always struggle to say it. Senja.
Good luck, man. You're on your own.
Yeah, Durangelo Sanja, I think it is how you finally pronounce it. But how can you not love a switch pitcher? I know in the pro level they're kind of projecting to be almost a righty, basically, which is fine because at the right hand side he's throwing 99 miles per hour with his
Yeah.
fastball. So it's hard to sit here and say, oh, um, it's hard to argue not to just go strictly righty, but I just have to love the aspect of him also being able to throw lefty at low nines, low to mid nines. And he just became that Mississippi State's number one. Was a bulldog this year for him. Funny because they're the Bulldogs, but I felt like he was a guy that you can kind of put in the game, and he held his velocity for a long time, and he had the ability to get strikeouts, which is obviously crucial in baseball. And I felt like he's just the type of guy that Atlanta takes, and he's like a Spencer Schwallenbach, AJ Smith-Shawver, just a dude that you can take as a college guy, even though I think AJ Smith-Shawver was a high school guy, but just a guy that kind of fast tracks that route to the pros. And who knows, he's been throwing left. So what does it look like if he focuses with only one? He's an athletic build. I know he's not super tall for a pitcher, but he is somebody that I just think has unlimited potential. I mean, there's guys, was it Pat Venditti 10 years ago that was throwing 85 from both sides and was playing in
Yeah.
the pros. So what does it look like if we have a 97 from the right and a 92 from the left? So that could be something, even though if his right pans out to not be a top of the line starter, is that something where you could bring him out of the bullpen and do different things like that to get outs from multiple sides? And it's just fun. You don't see it often at all. So that's kind of why I love him here to Atlanta in the first round.
Yeah, he's fun. But I also want to emphasize, he's not like a one trick pony just by switch pitching. He's really good from the right side, like you
Yeah.
said, running up to 99. And but there are concerns about him from the left side. A lot of people think that he's just going to go mainly righty. Um, I could see him doing both if he so chooses. Atlanta is a good spot for him to land. If you go at the back end of the first round, you're probably landing with a franchise who's got a good history of development, and Atlanta does. So I'm happy to see him go there. I actually have him going at pick 26 to New York, and I actually have Atlanta taking Jank from Sam Houston State, Walker Janik, and he's a kind of a field first catcher in a way. He's a 50 grade hit, 50 grade power, but his arm is what really sticks out. And I think he's going to be a very good catcher at the pro level. And when you look at guys in college who are really good catchers, it's easy to say that at some point, even if the bat doesn't come around, they'll probably make it to the show just because of their defensive ability. And this is one of those guys that I think the bat will come around. It's gotten better every year. Again, 50 grade on both hit and power, but it's really the fielding that sticks out to me. And I think that he is going to be a safe pick for Atlanta, somebody who could probably get to the bigs by the time that Sean Murphy leaves. and maybe back up him for a couple years before taking over the reins full time.
I like that. I like that a lot. And I'll have him going 27 to Philly. So I'll kind of piggyback off that, talk about that real quick. But I just know like JT Realmuto is a great catcher. I think he's getting up a little bit there, older in age. I could see him just being that defensive anchor for Philly. Years from now, he also is from Sam Houston, so it might take a not that the competition's bad, but it's not on the level of an SEC. So it could be nice for him to take a couple extra years as a college catcher, work with some of those prospects. I know they have some really good pitching prospects in the Phillies organization, and kind of be able to build that, and then be able to hopefully develop the bat a little bit while he's in those minors and get more accustomed seeing those top pitchers there. So that's kind of why I'm at 27 to Philly, but would not be surprised at all to see him go a little bit higher as you have him. For 25, I have Slade Caldwell going to San Diego. I know they've kind of liked their prep guys. It kind of seems that they tend to trade him besides Jackson Merrill, who's been panned out to be an absolute stud. Obviously, had James Wood, Robert Hassel. That's just three outfielders in the past couple of years that have all been drafted to San Diego out of the prep ranks. So Slade Caldwell, I know he's a different kind of mold than especially James Wood, but it's kind of the exact opposite mold. But I feel like he just kind of fits that boom or bust a little bit. I shouldn't say that because you're the run and field's going to play no matter what. But just with a late first round high school pick, and that bat being a little bit of concern, who knows if it pans out. But if it does, you could have a Gold Glove center fielder with some hitting ability, which would obviously have to develop a little bit. But with Jackson Merrill already out there, I think he has some time to develop, kind of like we talked about before, where he could develop a little bit in the Dodgers organization. I could see him that panning out in San Diego there. So that's why I kind of have him going to San Diego at 25. I know somebody I wanted to mention real quick that he does that I neither of us have going in the first round, but is a PJ Morlando, another prep bat that I could see. He was at one point one of the top prep players in this class, kind of falling a little bit, but I could see San Diego trying to take like to me, it's a swing, could be a miss, kind of has a low floor but high ceiling pick, and I could see San Diego kind of going for that. So I just kind of want to mention him because I know that's somebody that we won't talk about because he's in neither one of our first rounds. But San Diego, I haven't taken Slade Caldwell.
Yeah, I like San Diego going prep here. I have them taking Ryan Sloan, who we talked about quite a bit there. Yeah, we've talked about both these guys, Sloan and Caldwell. I think San Diego is definitely going to go prep this late, especially. This is where we're starting to see a lot more high school guys pop up, and both these guys seem to fit what they like to do. I know that they tend to go position guys in the first round most of the time, but they do have some positional need at pitcher. And I know that you don't draft based off of need, but if you have a chance to take Sloan, who's projected in the top 20, he falls all the way down to 25 to you, you might take a second look at him and take him there.
Yeah, no, I like that for sure. There at San Diego. For the Yankees at 26, I know we already talked about Senja a little bit for your pick, but I have the New York Yankees taking Billy Amick out of Tennessee. I know at one point he was a little bit higher. I know you don't have him in your first round. But I just feel like he's a dude that can man the hot corner. Obviously, coming from Tennessee, a winning program. He had a lot of success the prior year, and this year had some success, but not as much as the slash line show. But I feel like that's just a guy that I could see the Yankees putting in at third. I'm not sure. I think he'd just be a consistent player for him. I don't see him being anything crazy, but can man the hot corner for them in New York and be able to be a solid player for them. And obviously, coming from a winning program always means a lot. So I kind of have him going to New York.
Yeah, this is where I have Sinjay going. Could you imagine if everything works out right and the guy in the pinstripes on the bump on Saturday night or Sunday Night Baseball on ESPN is switch pitching? That'd be pretty cool. So I think it's more of a little bit of a dream for him to go there. I think that would be awesome. I do think that he might end up going a little bit earlier where you had him around 24. I could see him even going a little bit before that. And even if they want to use him primarily as a right, like I said, I think his right-handed stuff alone merits a first-round selection for him. And it's just kind of almost like an added bonus at this point that you might want to consider him going both. And he's had a little bit of struggles from the left side, especially with his fastball, but I think he's going to be a stud, and he's fun to watch.
For sure. I mean, when I was reading up on him earlier, they're like, yeah, he kind of like his body type is like a Marcus Stroman. So it would be funny.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, who knows if they'll be in New York at the same time, but it could be something where it's like them two both going out there back to back days and kind of having similar body types, a little bit undersized, but just dominating hitters, which would obviously be something kind of cool to see, even though not a huge Yankee fan over here.
Oh,
There,
me either.
yeah. They're at 27 Philly. I know I already kind of talked about Janet going there, but would you like to talk about your pick there at 27 a little bit?
Yeah, this is one of the most well-known college prospects, right? Tommy White, Tommy Tanks from LSU, corner infielder, tons of power. I mean, I don't know what his power grade is. It's probably 65 or 70. I mean, that's what he's known for. He's a free swinger. He's going to strike out a bunch, but the power is real. He's If he continues to work on his approach a little bit, then he's going to be a 30 home run guy every year in the show. I think him going to Philly is just kind of perfect. I could see he kind of fits that Philadelphia mold. Just his personality and his play style is just like perfect for being in Philly. So I think Philly fans would love him until he strikes out 200 times in a season. But he's also going to bring in that spark. I think he's probably going to end up being like a 5 or 6 hole. But I think he if he continues to work on his approach and just mash pitches in the zone, then he's going to be very good for Philly.
Yeah, no, I loved how you talked about kind of that persona that Tommy White has and how that kind of fits that Philly vibe and that long hair where they have Matt Strom and Brandon Marsh out there, Bryce Harper, some rocking the long hair.
Yeah.
But it's all just I could see that Tommy White just being there, maybe being a DH a little bit, maybe playing some third with Alec Bohm, a little bit back and forth there, but something like you said, that hit tool and power is just something that it's hard to turn down. And he's played 3 years of college baseball, NC State first year, 2 years at LSU, won a national championship. It's hard not to talk about kind of the experience that he has and how that could be a fast track player there. And he's seen a lot. I mean, going up in practice, I imagine against Paul Skeens last year, all the top guys. I can kind of just see in him being a pro ready bat. Don't know really what the glove's going to look like, but that could be something cool to see. And that's why I'm going 28 to Houston. I don't see a way where he slides out of the first round. I could see a lot of these teams that are having success right now. I know Houston hasn't had the best year per se, but wanting to keep that success and trying to find a guy that can be up there quick. Who knows Alex Bregman if he's going to be in Houston all the time for the foreseeable future, who knows? But I could see Tommy White being in Houston, kind of like that persona thing. Houston, obviously, it's been a couple of years, but kind of that bad boy vibe, kind of the rebels of the MLB, and I could see Tommy White kind of fitting that mold there in Houston and kind of manning the hot corner or the DH spot in Houston. So.
Yeah, this is where I have Kalen Culpepper going from Kansas State, the shortstop. Um, he's an interesting guy for me. I wasn't sure where to put him. I feel like he could go in a wide range of spots from like 20 all the way down to like 50.
Yeah.
He's just got that huge range. And I'm not sure what the consensus is on him. He's probably going to be a little bit more of a third baseman than a shortstop. He's a contact first bat. He just needs to continue to work on becoming a gap to gap hitter. I feel I read something about how he struggles to elevate the baseball. But I like his game. I like kind of the swagger that he brings to the field. He's a hard baseball player, hard nosed guy. His arm is fantastic, 55 hit tool. So I think he's going to be good, and I just wasn't sure about where he was going to play and where he's going to go in this draft. So I have him going a little bit on the higher end than I know some people do. So yeah, that's who I have going 28 to Houston.
Yeah, well, if it makes you feel any better, I have him going one pick later to the Arizona Diamondbacks. And like you kind of said, I had to find a way to get Culpepper into that first round just because I love him as a player. I know I've watched him a little bit during the regular season, but seeing Kansas State go into the Arkansas regional and kind of, I remember Culpepper hitting a backside bomb and kind of playing with that edge, and I felt like that was just something that put them apart and maybe made his stock rise a little bit. And I don't know if Arizona is necessarily like a fit player wise for him. But it was just kind of a way where I just felt like I could see him being in the first round somewhere at the tail end, um, and just being able to play and play with a little bit of edge and maybe bring. I know Arizona had some success last year, a little bit down this year, but can find a way to hopefully down the line bring Arizona, partner with Corbin Carroll if he gets back on track, Alec Thomas, and some of those other young guys in that organization, Jordan Lawler once he comes up, that could give the ability for Culpepper to slide over to third base and let Lawler man short, and just different things that can kind of have some flexibility there in Arizona, and that's kind of why I have him going 29 to Arizona.
Yeah, 29. I got Cash Mayfield, left-handed prep pitcher going here, and I think that he's going to almost surprise people with going a little bit earlier than where others may have him, just because he's a little bit of a late bloomer, right? Like he wasn't throwing super hard up until this year, and he kind of stuck out to a lot of scouts just in this past season. So that's why I kind of like him going here, is because he's already 19, granted, but he is growing right now, and it feels like he's still developing, and he could continue to develop. And as he develops that velocity, he's just going to get better and better. One reason that I really like him is because like some guys have to go through learning how to pitch because they have always had that rocket arm. He kind of did it the other way, didn't have the velocity initially. So he was getting guys out other ways. He's got a lot of pitches. His command is great. He's got really good feel. I think he's probably the most polished pitcher in the draft from the high school standpoint, but I don't think that he has the best stuff. So I'm hoping that as he continues to get older, and like I said, he's a little bit of a late bloomer, that he'll continue to build and just make his stuff a lot better.
No, I like Cash Mayfield a lot. I kind of saw him as like a type that somebody would pay over slot for in the comp rounds, like somebody at Cleveland, like in my mock, taking Weatherholt, going under slot, and then giving Cash Mayfield's funny cash, giving a little bit of extra cash
Yeah.
there, in that area. But I would not be shocked at all to see him fall in the first round. I think one of the teams that has a comp pick would love to see him there and be able to maybe throw him a little bit extra money. So to round out our mock draft, we both have the Texas Rangers taking Wyatt Sanford out of Independence High School. Kind of the reasons for me, I'll let you go into it a little bit as well. But the shortstop from Texas, he's a lefty bat. He can stick it short. He's athletic. And they already have Corey Seager there. So I thought, he might take a little bit more longer to progress his bat, but it's hard for me. I know it's a storyline, but a Texas kid getting drafted by the Rangers and being able to stick there as a shortstop in the future is kind of why I liked Wyatt Sanford there at 30.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I thought as well. I think he's going to stick it short. I think he's got really good feel for the position. He's a good contact bat. He just does a lot of things really well. Um, the one thing that kind of was the one knock, I guess, is that scouts don't see a ton of power potential. But like you said, if he continues to fill out, he could get to that 30 range. I'm not saying he's going to be like, not hitting home runs, but not necessarily like a big time power bat.
Mm.
But I like him a lot. I think he's going to be a stud. And like you said, Texas going to Texas. I mean, what more could you ask for right there?
Yeah, it's hard not to at least put that in a mock, and who knows what they get, what the Rangers go there, but definitely would be a cool storyline to see Wyatt Sanford fall there at 30. So
So that will round up our first round of the mock draft. Um, Upcoming on our next episode, we're going to try to go ahead and do maybe some all-star game selections, as well as covering some pre trade deadline stuff. So make sure you stay tuned for that. Look for us on social media, Twitter, Instagram. That'll all be linked below. And thank you guys for tuning in.